High Admiral Vexthor stood before the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council, his crystalline form refracting the soft light of the chamber's ancient quantum cores. The council chamber, carved from the heart of a dormant star, housed representatives from over 10,000 civilizations. Today, however, the chamber held something else: fear. The Xylaxian Empire has set their sights on the Sol system, Vexthor announced, his voice resonating through the crystalline architecture. Their conquest fleet departs within 3 lunar cycles. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Xylaxians were notorious for their efficient subjugation of primitive worlds, having conquered over 300 civilizations in the past millennium. Their technological superiority and military might were unquestioned in this arm of the galaxy. Elder Kathan, her bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with concern, raised her voice above the murmurs. Have they not received our assessment of the human species? They have, Vexthor replied, but Supreme Commander Zixtal dismissed it as, in his words, sentimental nonsense from weak-minded diplomats. The chamber erupted in frustrated discussions. The Galactic Council had spent decades studying Earth and its inhabitants, fascinated by the peculiar species that had evolved there. Humans were an anomaly in the galaxy, a species that developed in isolation on a death world, facing countless extinction events, yet surviving and thriving against all odds. Ambassador Naira, representing the ancient Archeon collective, stepped forward. Her holographic form flickered with barely contained urgency. The Xylaxians fail to understand what they're dealing with. Humans don't follow the standard evolutionary patterns we've observed across the galaxy. They're adaptable in ways that defy our scientific models. Vexthor projected a holographic display of Earth's history. In just a few thousand years, they went from simple tools to splitting atoms. Their technological progression is exponential, not linear like most species. They've survived multiple climate shifts, pandemic diseases, and global wars. Each crisis made them stronger, more innovative. The Xylaxians believe their standard conquest protocol will be sufficient. Elder Kathan observed, her tendrils now glowing that deep red of warning. They plan to disable Earth's primary power grids and communication systems, then demonstrate their superior firepower by destroying a few major cities. It's worked on countless worlds before. But humans aren't like other species, Naira interjected. They don't just adapt, they thrive on challenges. Their entire history is built on overcoming supposedly insurmountable odds. Our predictive models suggest they're one of the few species that actually become more dangerous when backed into a corner. The assembly fell silent as Vexthor displayed another projection, this one showing human military history. They've mastered the art of asymmetric warfare. Even when technologically outmatched, they find ways to prevail. Their fiction and entertainment are filled with scenarios of fighting superior forces. They've been mentally preparing for this possibility for generations, even without knowing it. Then we must send another warning to the Xylaxians, Elder Kithan declared. Make them understand what they're walking into. Vexthor's crystalline form dimmed slightly. I've already attempted diplomatic contact. Supreme Commander Zixtal's response was dismissive. He believes that any species that hasn't achieved faster than light travel independently must be primitive and easily subdued. Ambassador Naira's holographic form pulsed with frustration. The Xylaxians' arrogance blinds them. They see humanity's limited space presence and assume technological inferiority equals weakness. They don't understand that humans have been fighting against superior forces throughout their entire history. Perhaps, Elder Kathan suggested, her tendrils weaving complex patterns of concern, we should warn the humans instead. Give them time to prepare. Vexthor shook his head, causing rainbow refractions to dance across the chamber walls. The Council's non-interference protocols are clear. We cannot directly intervene in conflicts between non-member species. We can only hope that the Xylaxians realize their mistake before it's too late. As the council session concluded, Vexthor remained in the chamber, studying the holographic display of Earth. He had spent years observing humans, fascinated by their contradictions. They were capable of both tremendous creativity and devastating destruction, of great compassion and terrible violence. They created art that moved even the most ancient species to emotion, yet also devised weapons of frightening efficiency. But what truly set them apart was their resilience. Other species, when faced with overwhelming odds, typically surrendered to preserve their civilization. Humans, as their history showed, often fought hardest when victory seemed impossible. They had a saying that particularly worried Vex for: necessity is the mother of invention. The Xylaxians were about to give humanity the greatest necessity they had ever faced, and in doing so, they might just trigger an explosion of human innovation and adaptation that would reshape the galaxy forever. As he left the chamber, Vex Thor made a personal note to monitor the coming conflict closely. The galaxy was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating primitive species. He just hoped the cost of that lesson wouldn't be too high. Supreme Commander Zixtal stood on the command bridge of the Dominion, his flagship and the pride of the Xylaxian conquest fleet. Through the quantum viewing screens, the blue-green world of Earth hung suspended in space, seemingly peaceful and primitive. His mandibles clicked in anticipation as he reviewed the invasion protocols one final time. "Status report," he commanded, his carapace gleaming under the bridge's ambient lighting. Fleet Commander Ixera stepped forward, her battle armor bearing the marks of a dozen successful conquests. "The electromagnetic pulse satellites are in position around the planet. Supreme Commander, we have targeting solutions for their largest population centers, and our jamming fields are ready to disable their primitive communication networks." Zixtal's compound eyes reflected the tactical displays floating before him. The invasion plan was simple and had worked countless times before: disable their infrastructure, demonstrate overwhelming force, and accept their surrender. Most species capitulated within hours of losing their power grids and witnessing the destruction of a few strategic targets. "Begin the operation," he ordered. The first wave of EMP satellites activated, sending powerful pulses cascading across Earth's surface. The Xylaxians watched, expecting to see the planet's lights flicker and die. Instead, something unexpected happened. "Supreme Commander," Ixera called out, confusion evident in her voice, "we're only detecting partial infrastructure failures. Many of their systems appear to be shielded." Zixtal's antennae twitched in irritation. "Impossible. Their technological level doesn't include EMP hardening. Check the satellite functions." "The satellites are operating at full capacity, sir, but we're detecting widespread backup systems activating." They seem to have prepared for this possibility. Before Zixtal could respond, new data flooded the tactical displays. Earth's military installations were coming online, protected by what appeared to be surprisingly sophisticated countermeasures. More concerning, their communication networks were adapting, routing around the damaged infrastructure through backup systems that hadn't appeared on any previous scans. "Launch the first strike," Zixtal commanded, his voice carrying an edge of uncertainty he hadn't felt in decades of conquest. "Target their military installations in the region they call North America. Let's show them real power." The Dominion's weapon systems powered up, preparing to launch kinetic bombardment rounds that would devastate their targets with the force of small nuclear weapons. But as the weapons prepared to fire, Earth's response began. "Multiple launches detected," Ixera shouted. "They're using chemical rockets." Zixtal almost laughed. Primitive chemical propulsion was no match for Xylaxian technology. But his amusement died as the tactical AI updated its threat assessment. The human rockets weren't following normal ballistic trajectories. They were maneuvering, using complex patterns that suggested sophisticated guidance systems. More importantly, they were carrying payloads that the Xylaxian sensors couldn't identify. "Evasive action," Ixara ordered, but it was too late. The first wave of human rockets didn't target the Xylaxian ships directly. Instead, they detonated in carefully calculated positions, creating a cloud of debris that began to spread through the fleet's formation. Minimal damage, a tactical officer reported. The debris is mostly composed of metallic fragments and some kind of reactive compound. Suddenly, the Dominion sensors began to fail. The debris cloud wasn't just shrapnel. It was a carefully designed countermeasure, combining radar-absorbing materials with electronic warfare components that played havoc with Xylaxian targeting systems. They're using our own sensor frequencies, HFY realized with growing alarm. They must have detected and analyzed our scout ships months ago. They knew we were coming. Zixtal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of growing agitation. Impossible. They couldn't have developed countermeasures so quickly. Their technological level. Sir, another officer interrupted. We're detecting massive energy signatures from their lunar surface. There are installations there that weren't present in our initial surveys. The humans hadn't just prepared their planetary defenses. They had used the months since detecting the Xylaxian scout ships to establish military installations on their moon, hidden from direct observation. Now, those installations were powering up, revealing weapon systems that, while less advanced than Xylaxian technology, were positioned perfectly to support Earth's defense. Multiple human spacecraft launching from lunar surface, HFY reported. They're using some kind of hybrid propulsion system we've never encountered before. Crude, but effective in their gravity well. Zixtal watched as his carefully planned invasion began to unravel. The humans weren't following any of the expected patterns for a pre-FTL civilization. They had anticipated the attack, prepared countermeasures, and were now launching a coordinated defense that combined surprisingly advanced technology with innovative tactics. Send in the ground forces, he ordered. We'll show them what real warfare looks like. But as the drop ships began their descent through Earth's atmosphere, Zixtal couldn't shake the memory of the Galactic Council's warning. Perhaps there had been more to their assessment than mere sentiment. On the surface below, humanity was about to demonstrate exactly why they had survived countless extinction-level events on their death world. The real war was about to begin, and it wouldn't follow any of the patterns the Xylaxians had come to expect from their conquests. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by the scattered pieces of a Xylaxian dropship. The vessel had been brought down during the initial invasion attempt, its alien technology now spread across multiple research stations where teams of scientists worked around the clock to understand its secrets. "Show me the propulsion system analysis again," she requested, and the holographic display flickered to life, showing the intricate patterns of the alien engine's quantum field generators. 3 weeks had passed since the Xylaxians' first attack, and humanity had surprised even itself with the speed of its adaptation. The combined resources of every major nation had been poured into understanding and countering the alien threat. Traditional rivalries had been set aside in the face of extinction. Chinese quantum computing experts worked alongside American aerospace engineers, while Russian cybersecurity specialists collaborated with European AI researchers. Dr. Chen called out Dr. Patel, her colleague from the quantum mechanics division. "We've cracked their shield harmonics. The patterns aren't random. They're following a mathematical sequence we've seen before in particle physics." This was humanity's greatest advantage. Their ability to recognize patterns, make connections, and apply existing knowledge in new ways. Where the Xylaxians saw their technology as mystically advanced, humans saw puzzles to be solved. Above ground, the war raged on. The Xylaxians had established beachheads in several locations around the globe, but their advance had been much slower than anticipated. Human military forces had quickly adapted to their tactics, using everything from simple smoke screens that confused alien sensors to sophisticated electronic warfare techniques that grew more effective with each engagement. In her pocket, Sarah's phone buzzed, a secure message from General Rodriguez at the Combined Defense Command. "Dr. Chen, we've got another one. Strike Team Delta just brought down a heavy assault walker in the Sahara. It's mostly intact. How soon can your team deploy?" Sarah smiled. Every piece of alien technology they captured accelerated their understanding exponentially. "We'll be airborne in 30 minutes. The next day, Sarah stood in the scorching desert heat, examining the fallen walker. The Zylaxian machine towered 3 stories high, its insectoid design reflecting its creator's biology. But what interested her most was the neural interface system in the cockpit. "This confirms our theory," she announced to her team. "Their technology is optimized for their specific biology. They never considered the possibility of other species adapting it." This had been a crucial discovery. Zylaxian systems were incredibly advanced but inflexible. They had evolved their technology along strict paths that matched their own physical and mental architecture. Humans, with their broader range of problem-solving approaches, were finding ways to repurpose this technology that the Zylaxians had never imagined. Back at the facility, Sarah coordinated with the Global Research Network. In Brazil, engineers had figured out how to jam Zylaxian targeting systems using modified cell phone towers. Australian quantum scientists had cracked part of their communication encryption. A team in Japan had even managed to reverse engineer a simplified version of their energy weapons. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A group of video game developers who had been brought in to help design combat simulation systems made a crucial observation about Zylaxian tactical algorithms. "They're too perfect," explained Malik, the lead developer. "Their combat patterns follow strict optimization protocols. Once you understand the rules, you can predict their responses." This insight led to a revolutionary approach to combat. Instead of trying to match the Zylaxians' technological superiority, human forces began using intentionally chaotic tactics that confused the aliens' rigid strategic systems. The Zylaxians found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow the expected patterns of warfare. Humans used their own technology against them in ways they hadn't thought possible, combined with strategies that seemed illogical yet proved devastatingly effective. In orbit, the situation was transforming as well. The first human ships equipped with hybrid technology, combining reversed engineered Zylaxian systems with human innovations, were preparing to launch. They weren't as advanced as their alien counterparts, but they had advantages the Zylaxians hadn't considered. "They're expecting us to either cower in primitive defenses or attempt to copy their technology directly," Sarah explained during a global strategy briefing. "Instead, we're creating something new, a fusion of their advanced systems with human ingenuity and adaptability." The Zylaxian command was struggling to understand how their supposedly primitive opponents were advancing so quickly. Their reports back to the Empire showed increasing confusion and concern. Supreme Commander Zixtal had begun to realize the gravity of his error. His initial reports of an easy conquest had turned into requests for reinforcements, but the messages he received from the Empire were skeptical. How could a pre-FTL civilization be causing such difficulties for a superior force? What the Zylaxians failed to understand was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology. It was their ability to learn, adapt, and innovate under pressure. Each defeat taught them new lessons. Each captured piece of technology accelerated their understanding, and their decentralized approach to problem-solving meant solutions emerged from unexpected places. As Sarah reviewed the latest breakthrough, a way to turn the Zylaxians' own shield technology into a weapon against them, she couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. The aliens had expected to find a primitive civilization ready for conquest. Instead, they had awakened humanity's greatest talents: innovation, adaptation, and the relentless drive to survive against all odds. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humanity wasn't just fighting back, they were beginning to win. Captain Maya Rodriguez sat in the cockpit of the Chimera, humanity's first deep space combat vessel, incorporating hybrid human Zylaxian technology. The ship hummed with power from its fusion quantum core, a testament to how far humanity had come in just 2 months of desperate innovation. "All systems check complete," her XO, Commander Chen Wei, reported from the tactical station. "Hybrid shields at full capacity. Weapon systems online." The Chimera wasn't as elegant as Zylaxian ships. Its design reflected its rushed development and mixed heritage. But what it lacked in refinement, it made up for in innovations that the Xylaxians had never considered. The ship's AI core combined human neural network architecture with alien quantum processors, creating a system that could adapt and learn in ways that shocked their enemies. Battle Group Alpha. This is Chimera Actual. Maya broadcast to the fleet assembled in lunar orbit. Execute Operation Thunderbolt. Across Earth's solar system, humanity's counteroffensive began. But this wasn't a conventional military operation. It was warfare reimagined by a species that had spent millennia dreaming up ways to fight superior forces. The first phase began with what appeared to be a frontal assault on the Xylaxian fleet's position. Supreme Commander Zixtal watched with disdain as the primitive human vessels approached his battle line. "They've learned nothing," he commented to Fleet Commander Ixera. "Their hybrid technology is impressive for such a short time, but they're still no match for our fleet." But as the Xylaxian ships moved to engage, the true nature of humanity's attack became clear. The approaching vessels suddenly split apart, revealing their modular design. What had appeared to be conventional warships transformed into swarms of smaller craft, each operating with surprising autonomy. Multiple targeting solutions lost. A Xylaxian officer called out. "Their ships, they're using some kind of metamaterial coding that's scattering our sensors." The human vessels had incorporated specialized materials, developed by combining Xylaxian stealth technology with experimental metamaterials from Earth's laboratories. But the real surprise came from deep space, behind the Xylaxian fleet. Energy spike detected. Ixera shouted. "Something's coming out of hyperspace." The Xylaxians had believed humans hadn't cracked faster than light travel. They were right. Sort of. What emerged wasn't a human ship, but a reprogrammed Xylaxian cargo vessel that had been captured in the early days of the war. Its holds weren't filled with supplies, but with thousands of small, autonomous drones. "How did they access our secure navigation systems?" Zixtal demanded, but he already knew the answer. Humans hadn't tried to break the Xylaxian encryption. They'd found a way to duplicate the authentication codes from captured ships. The battle devolved into chaos, exactly as humanity had planned. Xylaxian combat doctrine relied on precise formation and coordinated attacks. The humans deliberately created confusion, using their smaller ships and drones to break up alien formations and isolate individual vessels. On Earth, the ground war took an equally unexpected turn. Resistance cells activated around Xylaxian strongholds, using a combination of conventional weapons and reversed-engineered alien technology. But their most effective weapon was information warfare. Dr. Sarah Chin's team had cracked the Xylaxian battlefield network protocols. Instead of simply jamming them, human forces began inserting false data, creating ghost targets and phantom threats that forced the aliens to waste resources and question their own sensor readings. In orbit, Maya's Chimera led the assault on the Xylaxian flyship. Her ship's hybrid systems allowed her to predict and counter alien tactics while executing maneuvers that the rigid Xylaxian combat computers couldn't anticipate. "They're adapting to our attack pattern," Chen Wei warned as the Chimera dodged another barrage of energy weapons. "Good," Maya replied with a grim smile. "That's exactly what we wanted." As the Xylaxians adjusted their tactics to counter the human attack, they fell right into the trap. The apparent chaos of humanity's assault masked a deeper strategy. Each time the aliens adapted, they were forced to commit more processing power to tactical calculations, making their systems increasingly vulnerable to the cyber warfare attacks that human hackers had been preparing. Supreme Commander Zixtal watched in horror as his fleet's coordinated defense began to break down. Ships stopped responding to commands as their navigation systems were compromised. Communication networks became unreliable as human viruses spread through supposedly secure channels. "We need to withdraw and regroup," Ixera advised, her mandibles clicking nervously. "These humans, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're not trying to match our strength, they're turning it against us. But withdrawal wasn't as simple as they'd expected. The humans had seeded the likely retreat vectors with miniature quantum mines, devices that combined Zalaxian power systems with human improvised explosive techniques. The resulting weapons were crude but effective, creating localized disruptions in space-time that played havoc with the Zalaxian engines. As the battle reached its climax, Maya's Chimera executed a maneuver that would have been considered suicidal by both human and Zalaxian standards. Using the ship's hybrid drive to surf the gravitational wake of a quantum mine detonation, she brought her vessel inside the Dominion's shield perimeter. "Target locked," Chen Wei announced. "But their hull is still too strong for our weapons. We're not trying to destroy them," Maya explained as she activated the Chimera's secret weapon, a device that Dr. Chen's team had developed by studying captured Zalaxian neural interfaces. "We're giving them a choice." The device activated, broadcasting a signal that interfaced directly with the Zalaxian ship's control systems. But instead of trying to seize control, it simply showed them the truth. Detailed analysis of the battle, projections of casualties, and most importantly, evidence of how thoroughly humanity had understood and adapted to their technology. For the first time in his long military career, Supreme Commander Zixtal felt fear. Not of defeat. He had tasted that before, but of something far worse. The realization that every assumption his civilization had made about technological superiority and species development had just been proven catastrophically wrong. The Imperial Palace on Zalaxia Prime glittered under its twin suns, its crystalline spires designed to project power and permanence. But within its secure war chamber, that sense of permanence was crumbling. Emperor Caxthal watched the latest battle reports from Earth with growing horror. "Impossible," he chittered, his imperial mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "How could a pre-FTL species not only resist our forces but drive them back?" The Imperial Advisory Council shifted uncomfortably in their ceremonial armor. The reports from Earth had grown increasingly dire. Supreme Commander Zixtal's once proud invasion fleet was in tatters, reduced to defensive actions against increasingly bold human counterattacks. "Your Majesty," High Counselor Vixna began cautiously, "we've analyzed the human response to our invasion. Their rate of technological adaptation is unprecedented. They're not just copying our technology. They're improving it, finding applications we never considered." The latest tactical update appeared in the chamber's holographic display. It showed human ships using modified versions of Zalaxian quantum technology to perform maneuvers that should have torn the vessels apart. They had somehow adapted the rigid Zalaxian systems to work with their more flexible approach to combat. "What's worse," another counselor added, "they're sharing their innovations globally. Every breakthrough in one region is quickly adapted and improved upon by others. Their decentralized research and development approach is proving far more efficient than our hierarchical system." On Earth, that very advantage was being demonstrated again. Dr. Sarah Chen's team had made another breakthrough, this time in analyzing the quantum entanglement networks that formed the backbone of Zalaxian communications. "Their system is too perfect," she explained to the Global Defense Council. "They developed quantum technology to be completely secure, but they never considered that the perfection of their security could be a vulnerability itself." Human scientists had discovered that the very precision of Zalaxian quantum communications made them detectable and predictable in ways that allowed for unprecedented interference. Humanity's messier approach to quantum mechanics, born of working with imperfect technology, had ironically led to more robust and adaptable systems. Back on Zalaxia Prime, the crisis deepened as news arrived from other conquest fleets across the galaxy. The Empire's enemies had taken notice of their struggle with Earth, and long-subjugated species were beginning to resist, adopting human tactics and strategies. "The Centaurians are in open revolt," reported Fleet Admiral Nick's telephone. "They've adapted human-style modular ship designs. The Proxima campaign is falling apart." Emperor Caxthal's compound eyes reflected the mounting disaster displayed before him. The Zalaxian Empire had based its power on technological superiority and rigid military doctrine. Now, those very strengths were becoming weaknesses as enemies adapted human innovations in warfare. On Earth, Captain Maya Rodriguez and the Chimera led another strike against Xylaxian positions in the Kuiper Belt. Her ship's hybrid systems had been further refined, incorporating lessons learned from each engagement. The human fleet no longer appeared crude or improvised. It had evolved into something entirely new, a perfect fusion of Xylaxian power and human ingenuity. They're retreating from the outer system, Commander Chen Wei reported from his tactical station. Their formation is breaking down. The Xylaxian retreat wasn't just tactical, it was symptomatic of a deeper breakdown in their military philosophy. Their forces had been trained to fight according to strict protocols, but humans kept changing the rules of engagement. Each adaptation forced the Xylaxians to question doctrines they had followed for centuries. Supreme Commander Zixtal, now fighting a desperate defensive action near Mars, finally sent the message that would shake the Empire to its foundations. The humans are not merely resisting. They are evolving. Every defeat teaches them. Every victory makes them stronger. We are not fighting a primitive species. We are fighting in civilization that has mastered the art of rapid adaptation. Request immediate withdrawal of all forces from the Sol system. The message reached Xylaxia Prime, just as reports arrived of more systems falling into revolt. The Empire's reputation for invincibility had been shattered, and the psychological impact was devastating. Species that had been conquered centuries ago began to see hope in humanity's example. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Caxful made the hardest decision of his reign. "Send the order," he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat. "All forces are to withdraw from Earth immediately. Send diplomats to begin negotiations." The word negotiations felt like poison in his mandibles. The Xylaxian Empire had never negotiated with a pre-FTL species before. But as he watched the tactical displays showing yet another human innovation wreaking havoc among his ships, he realized that old categories of technological advancement had become meaningless. Humanity had done more than resist an invasion. They had demonstrated a new way of thinking about technology and warfare. Their approach to innovation, born of countless centuries fighting against the odds on their death world, had proven superior to the Xylaxians' rigid advancement. As the withdrawal order spread through the remains of the invasion fleet, Dr. Sarah Chen made another discovery in her research lab beneath the Rocky Mountains. Studying the captured Xylaxian technology, she realized that humanity was on the verge of something even greater than defeating an alien invasion. They were. High Admiral Vexthor stood once again before the Galactic Council, but this time the crystalline chamber held a very different atmosphere. Gone was the fear of 3 months ago, replaced by a sense of awe, and perhaps more significantly, vindication. Earth's representatives were present for the first time, their attendance marking an unprecedented break with Council protocol regarding pre-FTL species. Dr. Sarah Chen and Captain Maya Rodriguez sat among the delegates, their presence a testament to humanity's extraordinary achievements. In just 3 months, they had not only repelled an invasion by one of the galaxy's most powerful empires, but had also achieved breakthroughs that were reshaping understanding of spacetime itself. The humans have developed what they call adaptive quantum tunneling, Vexthor announced to the assembly. By combining their understanding of uncertainty principles with Xylaxian technology, they've created a new form of faster-than-light travel that's more efficient than anything we've seen before. The chamber erupted in murmurs. It wasn't just that humans had achieved FTL travel. It was that they had improved upon technology that other species had used for millennia. Their fresh perspective, unencumbered by traditional assumptions, had led to innovations that were already sending shockwaves through galactic civilization. Ambassador Naira's holographic form flickered with excitement as she addressed the assembly. This is precisely what we observed in their historical pattern. Humans don't just overcome challenges, they transform them into opportunities for advancement. The Xylaxian invasion, intended to subjugate Earth, instead catalyzed a technological renaissance. In the 3 weeks since the Xylaxian withdrawal, Humanity's progress had accelerated even further. The hybrid technologies developed during the war were being adapted for peaceful purposes. The Chimera, once a warship, had become the prototype for a new class of exploration vessels that combined human creativity with alien efficiency. But the technological advances are not the most significant outcome, Elder Kathen observed, her bioluminescent tendrils pulsing thoughtfully. The real change is happening across the galaxy. The myth of technological superiority, equating to civilization advancement, has been shattered. She was right. The Xylaxian Empire's defeat had triggered a transformation in galactic politics. Long subjugated species were demanding recognition and representation, citing Earth's example as proof that technological development wasn't a linear path. The rigid hierarchies that had governed interstellar relations for millennia were crumbling. Dr. Chen stepped forward to address the council. "We've learned as much from this conflict as we've taught," she said. "The Xylaxians' technology showed us what was possible, but our greatest strength was never about technology alone. It was our ability to adapt, to think differently, to combine ideas in new ways." The council listened intently as she explained how humanity's diverse approaches to problem-solving had proven crucial. The solutions that had won the war hadn't come just from military leaders or scientists, but from video game designers, science fiction authors, and countless others who contributed unique perspectives. "This is why we're here today," Maya added, standing beside Sarah, "not to celebrate victory, but to propose a new way forward. Earth is establishing what we call the Innovation Exchange, a platform for sharing ideas and technologies across species and cultures." The concept was revolutionary. Instead of the traditional model of advanced species guarding their technologies, Earth proposed open collaboration. They argued that diversity of thought and approach was more valuable than any single technological advancement. Emperor Caxthal himself, attending remotely from Xylaxia Prime, spoke next. His once proud empire was transforming, painfully but necessarily, from a conquering force into something new. "We were wrong," he admitted, his mandibles clicking softly. "We measured civilization by mastery of physics and engineering, when we should have been measuring it by capacity for growth and adaptation." The Galactic Council chamber, carved from the heart of a dormant star, had witnessed countless diplomatic exchanges over the millennia. But none had quite matched this moment, as representatives from across the galaxy grappled with the implications of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. Looking out at the assembled species, Vexthor reflected on the warning he had tried to give the Xylaxians months ago. Humans hadn't just survived the invasion. They had used it as a catalyst for transformation, both of themselves and the galaxy at large. In the space around Earth, ships of various species now gathered peacefully. The first delegates to the Innovation Exchange were arriving, eager to participate in this new experiment in galactic cooperation. Among them were even some Xylaxian scientists, their rigid worldview shattered but replaced by genuine curiosity about different approaches to understanding the universe. As the council session concluded, Dr. Chen shared one final observation. The Xylaxians thought they were superior because they had achieved technological mastery. What they didn't understand was that true advancement isn't about having all the answers. It's about never stopping asking questions. The galaxy was entering a new era, one shaped by the realization that progress wasn't a linear path to be measured by technological benchmarks, but a complex web of adaptation, innovation, and collaboration. And at the heart of this transformation stood humanity, not as conquerors or victims, but as teachers of a lesson that had been waiting millennia to be learned, that the greatest strength any species could possess was not the power of their weapons, but their capacity to learn, adapt, and imagine new possibilities. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, as if reflecting the dawn of this new age. Humanity had not just earned its place among the stars, it had changed what that place meant for everyone.